Welcome back to Live With. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today I'm super excited because I have the owner and the guy who made it all happen at Bang Energy, Jack Owoc, a good friend of mine from the past. He's here. He's going to tell us about his tremendous success story in the industry and where he came from, how he got there, and where he's going. Jack, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. One of the things I want to do, I'm going to start out with telling people how we met, right? I saw you at the Arnold Classic walking around, and you had long pants on. What were those bodybuilding pants called in the day? And I'm looking at you in my booth, and I go, who is this freak? I could see this rope vein through his long pants. I'm like, holy shit. And then I found out you had a background in biology and everything like that. And then I asked you to write for us. You wrote a few articles for Anabolic magazine and everything. But you were a true freak of nature back then. Now you look pretty normal.
I forgot that magazine you had that I wrote for. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah, you were cutting edge back in the day. You were always cutting edge, though.
Yeah, definitely. You were cutting edge, with the bodybuilders and everything you were doing. And I was always attracted to that scientific part of it because there's so many trainers out there that, you're not getting good results and they just double up.
Yeah.
Double up the dosage. Don't change any nutrition or training, just double up. And so I admired you because you were probably the first one early on of I call them protocol gurus that took a scientific approach to building muscle.
Right. And
so I think that's how we connected initially.
Yeah, I'll tell you where I got it from. I think you were too. Were you a disciple of like a Bill Phillips, Scott Connolly disciple too?
Yeah, I followed them with a great deal of interest. But people said, if Bill Phillips has a seminar, are you going to come? I said, if he's talking about science, no. But if he's talking about marketing, I'll pay $5,000 for a front row seat. One of the things that was really cool where we printed the magazine Anabolic, where we were just talking about in human muscle and performance, it was in this place in Hollywood, Florida, a little place, and they also printed muscle media. Oh. And so when I went in there, they printed Red Book everything because they were the cheapest printer known to man.
Right.
And so I would go in there and I would get a copy accidentally on purpose of muscle media 2 months before it was launched because that's, you had to print it early to find out what was going on. And Bill was definitely always on the cutting edge. Again, he was, you could follow Joe Weider, this guy or that guy, but I'm like, this guy actually squats. Let's listen to kind of what he's saying.
Yeah, well, Bill Phillips was the first guy to really challenge, I think, Weider and that whole establishment and say, you know what, I'm not going to keep this hush-hush. We're going to talk about drugs. We're going to talk about what really goes on in bodybuilding and quantify it and try to at least put some kind of a scientific approach on it. And I think that guys like me, and I'm assuming you as well, we were kind of attracted to that because it was the first time we actually were able to get knowledge, because there was no internet back then, about these subjects. And, you got to read Dan Duchesne and Bill and all the people he would bring in as experts, where actually I was able to learn stuff, and you couldn't find this information anywhere else. And so to me, he was a guy, at least that I wanted to emulate in some sense in the future. I didn't know when. I liked the idea that he had his own supplement company. I liked the idea that he had a magazine where he kind of educated people on, what was the good stuff and what was the crap. And, he would test products and he would put the test results there, whose products were good, Remember, he must have destroyed that company. Remember Strength Systems USA?
Oh, yeah.
They had the worst crap of all time, and he exposed them completely,
I remember, too, in the magazine, he redacted it, which simply means you just put a black line over it, like in legal documents. But when you held it up to the light, you could actually see
it. You're right.
Accidentally on purpose, we call that.
Yeah.
But no, that was very cutting edge back then. I met Rayhan from there. Stoney Grimes called me once, and we were selling the plus and the base out of this little store we had.
Right.
And we took an early position early on with anything that was cutting edge. And the store that I slept on a mattress in, it's kind of like my life story of going from 350 square feet, about as big as your office now, to right now we operate in 3.2 million square feet.
It's unbelievable.
But back then, out of that little store, we were selling so much Metrex that they would bring the pallets in the beginning of the day, and we'd have to sell them before the end of the day because we couldn't even fit it in the store.
I didn't realize you sold that much Metrex. Really? Wow.
Yeah, and so then Stony Grimes, this is how I meet Stony. They go, Stony Grimes is on the phone. I go, from Muscle Media? Yeah. He goes, look, Jack, all the gyms are complaining you're selling it too cheap. He goes, but you've been selling it 2 years before they have. He goes, but I got to call you, and you got to tell everybody, yeah, I called you and told you to sell it less. He goes, keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, you must have been making them a fortune, Jack.
Yeah, it was fun, though, because everybody would come to me early on, just like they would come to you. They wanted real information instead of telling them some scam supplement. And back then, you know, that mixture of proteins, I still believe in that today, the fast fast whey and the slower casein and the intermediate egg protein. I mean, it's a great concept.
Yeah, it was a good concept. When you saw the, I guess, the grip that Metrex had on our industry, where people were paying full retail, no one complained, full retail for Metrex, I mean, forever, for years. That's how they made all their money. Is that how you got the idea to say, hey, you know what, I got to start my own supplement line?
No, it was actually before that. But a pivotal story, believe it or not, my father was over. He's 87 years old. So I was teaching school when I opened this little store, this little supplement store where I slept in the back on an air mattress.
You actually, that was your apartment, the store?
Yeah, it was called Vita House. Vitamins in the front, house in the back. And total was 700 square feet. But I remember one day we were only open 2 weeks, and I was teaching school, and I was making $1,900 a month. This is public school system. This is not private.
Terrible, yeah.
And in my second week, I made $700. Now, no one's going to be impressed with that nowadays, but when you're making $1,900 a month and you do 700 in one day in your second week, I said, there's something to this. The next pivotal moment was this guy came in, and this is a Metrex store. He was going to buy either the 20 count or the 60 count box. Remember?
Yeah, I remember the big. I like that big case they had. I used to get tons of those.
Yeah. So if he bought the 60 count, we were selling it at a huge discount at $144. He couldn't make his car payment. So this guy was literally in the store, you know, pacing back and forth. It's only 350 square feet. Deciding is, hey, if I buy the 20 account, I can make my car payment. If I buy the 60, I can't make it. My dad was in the store. My dad's old school.
Yeah.
So the guy finally gets up there. He's got a sleeveless tank on. He's proud of his build. He's sporting about 20% body fat, but I wasn't going to. And he makes the decision after 2 hours to buy the 60 count, and he's not going to make his car payment, which means it's going to get repossessed. My dad said something very pivotal, though, and it stuck with me, and it's so funny that we brought this conversation up yesterday. He said, remember, son, after the guy made the purchase, in this world, you're measured from the shoulders up. Meaning that all that bullshit below your head, your brain, doesn't mean nothing.
Yeah. I
mean, it took you and I 30 years to learn that.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Very, very interesting.
But a very pivotal Metrex story of me realizing, like, I'm like, wait a minute, this guy's not going to make his car payment. I did 700 in one day. And we had 17 years of uninterrupted growth.
Wow.
But, you know, that's part of another story. So, yes.
But you know what? It tells you that where people's priorities are. You know, people saw Metrex as like, it was like doing a steroid cycle because it was such a superior supplement to everyone. And the marketing behind it with Bill Phillips using Connolly and I mean, they had that thing. I mean, they were like, I remember there were rumors that there was clenbuterol in there. People were making up all kinds of crazy stuff because people couldn't believe that, you know, people were making such gains on the stuff. And it was just that people were finally eating enough protein. They were eating a protein source that was actually absorbable and able to be assimilated. It really was revolutionary in the sense that it created a much higher quality and science-based supplement business that never really existed before that. And then everything kind of took off from there at that point. And it was interesting.
Yeah, so everybody's talking about a calorie surplus, a calorie deficit.
Yeah.
But what it did too is you ripped open the packet, so it was foolproof. You couldn't fail.
Yeah.
And as long as you're eating high protein, look, on any diet, Dr. Antonio did a study where the test subjects consumed 800 calories additional from protein every day above their baseline.
Wow.
And they still build muscle and lost body fat.
Crazy.
So protein's like this fail-safe in dieting where there's almost no ceiling. But if you do that with carbs or fat, or carbs and fat, you're gonna get body.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when did you decide, hey, I'm going to start VPX and do my own supplements?
1993. We made something called ATP resynthesizer. It not only had creatine in, but it had the different amino acids where your body synthesized creatine itself. And we sold a ton of it.
Where'd you get that idea for that product, Jack?
What's that?
Where'd you get the idea for that product?
I was kind of looking at phosphagen, and I said, well, it has sugar. And even though they were touting that as a delivery system to increase insulin and shuttle, the creatine into the muscle and all that,
right.
There was just too many people like myself that I believed, and I got a lot of this from you, believe it or not, when I developed products, is a non-insulin mediated way to build muscle. So meaning no sugar, no carbs.
Yeah.
And that's when I came out with Shotgun. And there's, we have muscle gene protein studies where it increases myogenic regulatory factors up to 515%. Nutrigenomics, proven in a Baylor University study and a Florida State study. That's all in my book that's coming out.
Okay.
Now, Natalia, if you can...
what year was that, Jack? That was you were ahead of your time, I think, at that point.
I was a legend in my own mind.
No, what year did you come out? No one was talking about that stuff when you came. No one even knew what you were talking about when you came out with that stuff.
Yeah, and one of the things when you say that, and I'll answer your question in a second, is that's why I came out with the magazines. I said, look, if I was a teacher, a science teacher, health, a bunch of different disciplines. I said, look, if you come out with something new, you got to take on the responsibility of educating the consumer about what you're doing. Just like you did in bodybuilding and training protocols and everything like that. I mean, you can't come out with something new. Then you got to actually sell the truth to the consumer if he's going to use the products.
Now, when the pro-hormone market kind of got really ripe for the picking, and I think Patrick Arnold was the first person to really introduce androstenedione, and then everyone kind of jumped on the bandwagon. You actually had a great spin on it because you had your pro-hormones and you were selling with a little syringe, attached to the bottle, which was great. It was almost like a baby syringe, like that you would draw up like a kid's medicine with. Where'd you get that idea? That was brilliant, Jack.
So one of the things, I had a little boy at the time, and I noticed like in Publix, it's like a Kroger. People aren't familiar with Publix in different parts of the country, but they are, just like you said, they would feed babies with these little things that look like a syringe, but they had no needle on it, right? And Baxa was a company that had made those and patented them. And the patent was very simple. You couldn't screw a needle onto it because in the hospital setting, if somebody saw this thing and screwed a needle on and injected food into someone, obviously you're going to have a pretty big problem. And so I got the idea that when you study bodybuilding, heroin addicts, anybody that's into this type of stuff, even supplements, they're as much addicted to the ritual as they are the drug itself.
You're right.
So we had this bottle, and you would stick the thing in the syringe and pull it upside down. But that was kind of a marketing thing, but it was a great tool to measure how much you use. Because if you're using something like a product we had called Monster Test, 10 milligrams in a liposomal delivery system, in a lipid, was super potent. So you had to measure it. I mean, the difference between 10 milligrams and 15 could send somebody over the edge. So these like that methyl 1-testosterone. But what we learned first, which was really cool, as I said, and the name of the parent name of the company is still Vital Pharmaceuticals. Yeah. I said, look, this supplements like Bill tested, we tested, everything's fake, nothing meets label claim. I don't want that snake oil image. I want to operate like a pharmaceutical company. Sure. So all the original pro hormones, if you remember, they weren't orally active. They would break down with first pass liver degradation, just like, real steroids. So I said, look, I want to make something that's just like an injection that bypass liver degradation, goes directly into the bloodstream. What's pretty easy in science is when you coat something with a lipid, the lipid will transverse the intestinal through the microvilli
Right.
directly into the bloodstream because it's lipophilic.
Sure.
And we got stuff like 4-androstenediol and the early pro hormones to work magnificent. People were gaining 7 to 10 pounds. I had Dr. Diamond up in your neck of the woods in New York testing these on all his clients and giving the blood results. And it was phenomenal with the gains we can get. The thing, and then nobody can compete with us, right? Because if
no one had that delivery system,
it just didn't work.
Interesting. So you make, and then obviously they make the stuff illegal at some point, and you can't sell it anymore. Was that now? You've recreated yourself so many times that that's really what impresses me. What do? You're making a lot of money selling these pro hormones, obviously, in addition to the other stuff you're making with the company. But I'm sure you're making a ton of money from that. How do you say to yourself, "Oh my God, I can't sell this stuff anymore. I got to now recreate my brand to champion something else"? What did you do at that point? How did you respond to that new law that they set forth?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because everybody said, "Oh, VPX is going to go out of business, pro hormones, everything like that." But one of the things I was always doing that you've got to look, you have to embrace change, and you have to be different, and you have to, just like we did now. We took everybody off guard. We came out with a carbonated drink. Everybody said no one would drink it. We did all these things 7 years ago that people are just copying us now. It's a little too late in the game. You look at every supplement company now, they have a, 16-ounce carbonated drink. This is the new key lime pie that we just launched. Amazing. I'll have to say.
Is that Bang or Redline? What brand is that?
No, it's Bang.
Okay.
But that's the thing, just like with the pro hormones, is I knew we had to pivot, right? I knew we had to pivot when ephedra was going to be made illegal. We would be experimenting every day, all night with different stimulants.
Right.
And it was another pivotal point when ephedra was pulled, everybody just took it out of the product. Well, none of the products worked.
Right.
We had Yohimbe and these other methylated PEA compounds and everything that was legal at the time. And we were ready when we answered. And it was really cool because GNC, we had a love-hate relationship, but Redline came into prominence. They would buy our Redline gel caps. They would purchase, when ephedra was made illegal, $1.7 million purchase order in the beginning of the month and like a $700,000.
Wow.
And back then for a little company, man, I was blown away. But we had the only answer. And then we transitioned that into the Redline drink, and it became the #1 selling beverage in all categories of all time in both GNC and Vitamin Shop, which are the largest world's largest health food retailers.
Let me ask you that, because that was definitely a monumental, very unique thing that you did. You came out with an energy shot drink, Redline. No one had that. People don't realize you were the first to market with that. Where'd you get the idea from to do that, Jack? And what gave you the idea? Drinks are heavy to ship. They obviously increase the cost. You have to have distribution. Like, when you got this idea to do this, I mean, did you know how you were going to get there, or kind of did you feel your way?
No, thank God I was stupid. No, none of us in the beginning knew anything, but when you have this gut feeling something's going to work, you don't worry. You're not sophisticated like we are now, where we're thinking about shipping and weight. We're like, we're going for it. Who cares? Right? So we have nothing to lose.
Yeah. Were you making the original ones yourself, or did you in-house, or were you farming it out initially?
No. So what we did was we took this position, and I believe we still have this position today, and I'll explain it, is to become the kings of liquid delivery, because everyone else wasn't doing it. Everyone was afraid of it. I embraced the science early on. And so we were learning again how, and funny you bring up that little applicator. It's like a bottom of a syringe, but it's 5 mLs.
Right. So
you have 334 milligrams of ephedra herb in there. You had Yohimbe. You had 250 milligrams of caffeine, all in 5 cc. We had to learn how to flavor that. So
yeah, right.
So when you learn how to flavor that, and it comes to, okay, now we have 8 ounces. It's so much easier. We were experts. We were experts in liquid delivery. And what we did too, and we still do to this day, we have this high-speed shear. And it's this blade system that you got to see. It's just phenomenal. And it takes particle weight down to 3 microns or less. Mm-hmm. And so you're shearing these compounds where you're getting a much greater effect out of the same amount of compounds. It's just like it's bad to it too. If you look at the vaccines that are made nowadays, people go, well, how could they F you up? Well, the aluminum that's in there, why would you put aluminum, is micronized to such a degree, and so is the mercury, that it crosses the blood-brain barrier. So we took that negative, though, and made it into a positive where you micronize these particles and they're much more effective. So in Redline, everybody's like, how is this drink clear and it tastes so good and works so well? Right. But again, we were like obsessed with all these liquid delivery systems to make the pro hormones work and all this other stuff.
How did you have like scientists working for you to do this, to figure this stuff out, or how did you come? Yeah, because if no one did it before and you were the first ones to really revolutionize that, how does that come about? Where do you even start with something like that?
So I taught 6 different disciplines of science, took chemistry and did all this thing. And I had enough knowledge where I could figure most of this stuff out to a certain degree and then hand it off to one of the guys we had was from a major pharmaceutical company, and his title was head of liquids and semi-solids. Mm-hmm. And so we worked with him to do these different delivery systems, and I could articulate what I wanted, and him and I working together, we would be able to make these different delivery systems to get these things to work. So I was always considered myself the world expert on these unique ingredients, and then take maybe an ingredient that was, orally maybe mediocre and turn it into the super ingredient through a great delivery system.
The reason I really admire what you did, Jack, is because you didn't just you're not just a marketing genius guy who said, hey, I got an idea, I'm going to make an energy drink and compete against some of the Red Bull and all these other guys. You actually had science behind your product, and I don't even know if people who use your product know that aspect of what you do, that there's actually a science behind everything you make over there, because that, to me, that only validates what you're doing more, because most of these carbonated drinks out there are just caffeine and carbonation and flavor. I mean, you have a layer of something more there where there's actually science behind what you're doing.
Yeah, so one of the things I did too is everybody was telling us when we had Redline drink, you'd have top executives from Pepsi, from Dr. Pepper. Right. As they would get fired, they would always gravitate toward us, and they would count to 3, and they would say, "Look, over and over, you got to come out with a carbonated 16 ounce. Got to come out over and over." But they also would tell me, "But make sure you put sugar in."
No way.
Because their thing was, hey, the ones that are top sellers have sugar in it, right?
Sure.
So what I learned early on was, and we can get back to this. I don't know how long you want to do this interview, but to deny the data. To be super successful, you have to deny the data, because that means your isolized protein. If you looked at the data, grape and orange are number 1, you'd have a grape and orange. But you see all these revolutionary flavors because you deny the data. And like we have rainbow unicorn, radical skedaddle, all these crazy flavors that are top sellers because we denied the data and did things differently. Right. So here's a shameless plug for my book. But I'm going to put it up close because one of the key things, like you said, is it has over 1,000 scientific references.
That's crazy, Jack.
7 patents and 30 university studies that we did. So in there, I was always interested in the science. So we would fund studies at Baylor, Florida State, UCLA, Memphis, all these great studies. That's part of the book that makes it different.
Right.
I told my wife, I've been writing this book for 13 years. So I said, I could throw this book in the garbage right now, and I felt like it many times. This is just a prototype. I said, we did 1.28 billion in sales last year, but that's from this massive learning experience.
Hold on, Jack. Say that number again, what you did in sales.
I'm going to quote IRI data because a lot of people will never believe it. So you could look it up. It's public information. We did, with just bang, we did 1.28 billion in sales in 2000.
Billion with a B.
Yes, sir.
Wow. That is impressive, Jack. That's crazy.
I appreciate that.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And so, but writing that book, that 13 years of discipline and effort to write the book is what set us on that track, because what happens is then it allows us to set the trend, us to know where it's going, us to know what the next innovation is going to be and everything based on the science.
Right.
Go ahead.
Now, what I wanted to ask you is, I know this, I have never discussed it with you, but I know that what the answer is going to be already. When you start doing these kind of sales, I have to imagine that Pepsi and Coke, all these companies that are the big names, they got to be shaking in their boots. They got to be like really angry too that this guy who's sleeping in his store 10 years ago is now cutting into their business. Were you getting did people give you death threats, or were there people trying to muscle you out of the business, try to put the kibosh on you?
Well, give me 1 second here. You can go, because I don't want to hold you up. I'm letting my scientist leave now because he has all these samples waiting for us to try. Because research and development, we never stop it no matter what.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Doc. I'll just check you later. Thank you kindly. We got a ton of samples that he brings over every day and then twice a day, and then I get stimmed out of my mind.
I was going to say, you must be jacked out of your mind all the time with all the samples here.
Yeah, I'm trying to sip this while we talk. Yeah, go ahead. That's why I asked you if you're sure you want to go down that rabbit hole. There's some negativity there. I'm glad to talk about it.
Yeah, I'd like to know, because people think that it was an easy rise for you, but I have these companies, they don't go softly into that good night. They're not going to just bow down to you. So I have to imagine that it was a very tough road for you.
Yeah. Okay. So and you're correct. So I always equated, especially being down here in Miami, the Scarface days and everything else, the drug dealing trade. When Castro let all his criminals out of jail, that really did happen. Scarface down here in Florida, when Castro let all the Cuban prisoners go.
Right.
But in drug dealing, someone takes your turf, right? And what do? You kill them. In the corporate world, you sue them and you try to put them out of business. Well, in 2008, roughly, I don't know, roughly about 10 years ago, both Red Bull and Monster sued us over Redline, knowing that this product was far superior than anything they had, right? They were in panic mode, and they both sued us. They were both frivolous lawsuits. Both of them had to walk away with nothing, but it was interesting.
So you beat them. You beat Redline and Red Bull. I mean, you beat Red Bull and Monster. Right.
And so what happened in the Red Bull case is we both had spent $700,000 on attorney's fees. Dietrich Maeschitz out of Austria, sounds just like Arnold when you talk to the attorneys over there and everything. He said, "Look, we got to settle this lawsuit." So not Dietrich, but his main attorney, Volker Vickbauer, never forget his name. And he goes, we spent $700,000. How much did you spend? We're now like frenemies, right? On the phone.
Yeah.
I go, we spent $700 too. And I was laughing. We spent the same amount. He goes, I'm going to tell you the truth. He goes, we make people go away for $15,000. And he goes, apparently you ain't going away.
They don't know. They didn't know you very well, Jack. That's right.
Well, what happened with Redline is we made it first in an aluminum can, and we did make it in-house to answer your question, because we didn't want to give the formula away. First run was 80,000 bottles. Second run, just 6 weeks later, was 800,000 bottles.
Oh my! How did you have enough production? Well, you were running lines 24 hours a day?
Well, we bought this killer fog filler. It's a rotary filler that does a few hundred bottles a minute.
Yeah.
That was fast for us back then, a few hundred bottles a minute. And we purchased it, and we were just, we were running it nonstop. And, we're all jacked up on Clenbuterol on Redline. So there was times we'd work on the magazine for 48 hours straight and think nothing of it. I
wow.
mean, when you're done, you're having fun. And, so I said, okay, the attorneys, I realized that it was the law firm that was the problem, not Red Bull.
Right.
Because they had paid us $700,000. And I told them in 21 emails, only one person's allowed to bill. And I said, we're going to win this in the media, and I'm going to teach you guys how to fight this the right way against Red Bull. So in any event, we didn't let the attorneys talk, and Volker and I settled the case within 10 minutes.
Really?
He wanted to save face, and so Redline had originally had a gray cap.
Right.
And we were changing to a white cap because it was 1 penny cheaper and it looked a lot cleaner, right?
Yeah.
And a penny, when you're starting to make millions of bottles, which we phased into after the second run, is a lot of, it adds up to a lot of money.
Yeah.
So he went back and he was able to tell his peeps, well, we got him. They were saying that little cap, like this cap right here.
Yeah.
We copied with a silver plastic lid. I mean, come on. They were reaching.
Oh, my God. Are you serious?
Well, they knew they lost. So when we went before the judge in mediation, I said a bunch of things. The judge was making fun of me for like 6 hours straight.
Really?
So
Why was he making fun of you?
Because that's what, judges do. I was saying all kinds of things that he just didn't agree with when we were trying to come to a settlement. So I said, Judge, Rolex. So now I'm getting to be a little smart ass too. I go, Judge, because we're like, we're taking shots at each other.
Yeah.
We're bored. I mean, we're in there with Red Bull. Yeah. They're double billing on their Blackberries.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like emails while they're billing, So I said, Rolex watch. How much does a fake one cost? He goes, I don't know, a few $100. I go, what's the real one cost? And the judge could relate to a Rolex, right? He said $10,000.
Right.
I said, well, I don't know if you know this, but Red Bull's claiming that we're the knockoff. And do you know that we cost $1 more than them? And he goes, Owoc, it's the first intelligent thing you said all day. But he agreed with me, and Red Bull attorneys literally scrambled out in the hallway to settle after that because they knew they were sunk. In other words, you cannot claim that Redline is a knockoff when it costs 30% more than your product.
Right. Yeah.
And I said, furthermore, Judge, because the law it's called confusion. They don't want consumer confusion.
Right.
This is the only case that's so egregious that you could blindfold consumers and put all the energy drinks out there and go feel the one that's different. And they would pick Redline because it's the only one that's not in the metal can.
Right.
And they knew they were sunk. And so we went out into the hallway, didn't let the attorneys talk, and we settled literally within 15 minutes. I could have went against them and got attorney's fees and everything like that. But, back then, when you already spent $700,000 and you're spending so much money, and it's meant to, people don't understand this. Lawsuits are meant to take you off your game.
Sure.
So when you get taken out of the equation because you got to do depositions and all this, it hurts the business a lot. And I just wanted to get back to business.
Right.
So I said, Monster also sued us same year because they were, again, in panic mode because in LA, we were just crushing it, which is the most progressive and sought after energy drink market in the world.
Right.
So in the Monster case, a similar thing happened. I had to go out there for mediation. I told the judge, I go, on the phone, we're on a conference call, Rotten Rodney Sachs, I call him. I gave him the hashtag Rotten Rodney and other people. And I just posted something about this yesterday on LinkedIn that you can read about Rotten Rodney. But the judge said, I said, Judge, I don't want to go out there. Mark Hall, Rodney Sachs, they're arrogant. They'll never settle. I said, I want to just go straight to court. I didn't want to fly out there and go to mediation because I knew they would never come to a settlement. And I said, Your Honor, they never beat people. They just sue them and they run them out of money and they ruin them financially and emotionally.
Right.
And so he said, well, keep talking, Mr. Owoc. So I said, look, you could look it up. They're one of the most litigious companies in America. Right now, I believe they're the most litigious consumer product goods company in America with over 250 federal lawsuits.
Wow.
And they do ruin people's lives. Many people have come to me. So I said, I go, the bully needs to get struck back, right? And he goes, what about your shareholders? I said, the company's privately owned. He goes, what about your legal fees? I said, we have in-house attorneys for this exact same thing.
Right.
I want to fight these guys. He goes, Mr. Owoc, remember, this is like 10, 11 years ago. He goes, I agree with you. The bully needs to get struck back. Words are very powerful, and you're the one to do it.
Wow.
These words have come true today where we're in a lawsuit with them where we're in like 6 different lawsuits with them. And we're doing it on behalf of ourselves, of course, but for everybody else, based on principle, that they ruined their lives, sexual harassment suits, everything. They got caught rigging the arbitration. I posted something yesterday where they lied about to their shareholders, where they just filed a suit yesterday against them. And so those judges' words are coming true. Is the bully needs to get struck back, and we're the ones to do it. Here it is, 11 years later, we're doing it. We have 6 cases, and I told my attorneys, I go, I don't care if I have to spend $100 million. We're going to take these guys out. I said this under oath several times. I go, no holds barred, and so we're in this fight right now. But when you take $1 billion away from somebody in sales, just like a drug dealer, they're not going to sit down and fight for their turf. And that was the question you were asking. It's a long, extended answer, but they're not just going to sit back. They're in panic mode because they know Bang's a better product. It's a cleaner product. And the young people are embracing it. We have this extreme positivity. They have this extreme negativity, and they just can't compete. And that's the challenge.
But Jack, how do you balance? How do you stay balanced yourself? Because that lawsuits are stressful. No one wants to be sued. No one wants to deal with this crap. You're a science guy. You want to just do your science and make your products. I know the kind of person you are. How does that affect you mentally, or have you learned to kind of like separate yourself from it?
No, I learned how to bifurcate the 2 different things. I think to me, it's biblical. I don't force my religion on anybody, but it's real simple. In the Bible, there's a historical account of this too, even if you're not religious. What the David and Goliath fight, it's a real fight. It's historical. It's has religious implications also. But in life, you're going to face a lot of giants. I know you have. I don't know your story exactly, but you're not going to get to where you're going without resistance. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
God puts these giants in your way. God put Goliath in David's path. For David to come into prominence and us to be talking about him right now today, he had to slay the giant. You can't go around the giant. You can't circumvent him. You can't go over him. You got to slay him in order to come to your destiny.
Right.
And I have a strong belief on that. So God put this giant in our way, and the bigger the giant, Dave, the greater the reward is on the other side.
Sure.
So I know when we slay this giant, to me, it's like a demonic thing. On the other side is this massive victory, right? The bigger the giant, the bigger the victory. Right. You got to slay him. So you're a warrior. You've competed. You know all these things. In order to win, you got to do what you got to do. You can't cower in fear like a lot of people are doing during COVID.
Right.
I use the same principle. Last week, we were out in Texas for a full week, 221 people. Hey, COVID's here. We did it safely. We're launching. We're going strong. I'm teaching people, look, if you can't cower in fear in your bed, you got to go out and slay your giant, face your giant. And what it did was it made everybody happy. I'm positive if they got out and did something and stopped, hiding in their apartment or whatever.
Sure. Well, what you did is what you're doing is unbelievable. Just recently you guys signed that big, huge deal with Pepsi. How does that come? How does Pepsi come to you and say, we want to be your official distributor? That's an enormous big deal that you signed with them, and yet you still have complete ownership of your company. It's amazing.
So we Anheuser-Busch did well for us, and we still use probably about 80% of our former Anheuser-Busch distribution with our allied brands. We have something called New Fusion, really cool because it's got 10,050 milligrams of actives. It's got 7 grams of essential amino acids, really cutting edge stuff. It's hard to synthesize 10 grams in a 16-ounce beverage, carbonated. No one else can do it to date. We redid Redline, which has been huge.
I saw that. I like those new Redlines. I've tried them. They're really good, too.
Thank you.
Flavors are delicious.
That means a lot coming from you. So with these products, though, we call them allied brands. We're still distributing them with our own distribution and with a lot of Anheuser-Busch houses and even certain independent Pepsis. Pepsi has an exclusive distribution deal for Bang, right?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of getting used to because we're super fast. We launch a new Bang flavor every 90 days.
Wow.
They're a very slow ship to turn. There's a great dynamic tension there. Both companies are learning from each other. But like in food service, they're massive, like on 60% of all college campuses. It's just mind-blowing.
Wow. Yeah.
What they have to offer you. They have 350,000 accounts. But again, we make unilateral decisions and quick decisions. And with them, it's slow. It's just, there's a lot of dynamic tension where we're learning from them and they're learning from us. It's definitely not easy. That's for sure, though.
Let me ask you, this is the question I want to ask you, because you're a humble guy. I know you for many years. I mean, you lived in your store, very modest. Now you have probably more money than you could ever spend in your entire life. And I know you're not a big extravagant guy, you're not a show off. You like your little toys, but when you have that much money, when you make this much money and you're this successful, what do you do with the money? I mean, at what point does it become like, I don't even care about the money anymore. I'm just, because you work just as hard today, probably, maybe harder than you did when you were living in your store. It's amazing.
To me, it was never about the money. It was about winning the game and
Right.
helping people. And even in my first year in business, I told the people that were starting to work for me, I go, look, just help people. Just help people. The bank account will take care of itself. I said, they looked at me like a deer in the headlights. I go, imagine if you helped 100 people today, how much sales we would do. And it rang clear to them. It's like, look, if I talk to somebody on the phone, explain the supplements and help them and let them get what they want, hey, the bank account will take care of it. And we still have that same mentality. Now, you might think I'm odd for God or people that don't understand religion. I don't force it again on anybody. Right. I'm just who I am. But I look at my blessings as a way to bless others and to advance the kingdom of God here on earth. Very simple is you look right now and it's 21% more people are seeking God because of the craziness going on in the world.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate most people put God on the shelf. Then when they're in panic mode, they go, God, we need to pull you down. We need to talk. I'm scared. But a lot of people are missing God in their life, and it's this spiritual dynamic. Even Time magazine, that's very secular, said that we're wired for a relationship with our Creator. And I think too many people are trying to fill that God void that they have with sex, drugs, everything else, and you can't fill it. You can only fill it with God. And just I met a lot of super uber wealthy people, especially in my position now, and I noticed a lot of them, no matter how successful, how wealthy, boats, jets, whatever, when they don't have God, they're very shallow and insecure. It's mind blowing, and so I think it's a dynamic that everybody should explore. Again, I'm not odd for God. I sin just like the rest of them, but you live your life in a different manner. I mean, I get my joy now. I have 4 kids with my new wife and 5 kids total. And that's, what brings me joy. And I like working. I like doing what I'm doing.
If someone came to you, Jack, and said, hey, you know what? We're offering a couple seats on this next space flight to the moon. It's going to cost you, whatever, $1 million, $2 million per seat. Would you go to the moon?
I would send you.
All right. Okay.
Heck no, I'd be bored stiff. Who wants to go to the moon? There's nothing up
You
there.
never know. You could. You might find some new ingredients, supplement ingredients over there.
Elon Musk gets to Mars, they're going to burn up. I mean, what's the purpose? Well, I've heard lately, though, that they said there might be life on Venus. They found a lot of different things that indicate there might be life. I mean, who knows? But I think it would be crazy to be in space and trapped. I'd bring a gun with me because I'd probably have to shoot myself.
Don't kill yourself. We need you, Jack. What's the next big project? Where do you see your company going in 5 years from now?
Well, wait, I got to ask you first. Would you go into space?
But if I would, if I didn't have kids, probably. So I'd say no now because I would be afraid that I wouldn't come back. But if I didn't have kids, I'd probably do it. Yeah.
Do you consider John Romano your kid?
Yeah, I might go if John went. If I can go with John and have at least someone to talk to the whole time, I'd probably go, yeah.
I'm going to pay for both of you to go. What was your question? Go ahead.
All right, I'll take you. If you pay for me, I'll go. There you go. Tyler, my producer, says he'll come too if you buy us both 2 seats. Let me ask this question. No, seriously. I mean, do you see yourself continuing to do this, for 10, 15, 20 more years? Or do you, if someone came along and offered you a ridiculous amount of money for your companies, would you sell them?
Well, that's happened twice. I mean, in my house now, I invited you over, but you never came.
God.
But we've had Anheuser-Busch over contemplating buying a piece of the company. And I told him I would sell him a minority share only. And I said, look, you can't have anybody sit on the board. I go, in fact, you're not even allowed to call me. And I thought they would be upset. And they go, well, we messed up our business and we'd really mess up yours. So they go, don't worry, we won't be calling you. That never materialized because they're losing 4% a year. And when you're losing 4% of $100 billion in sales every year, that kind of hurts after 10, 12 years. But the problem is here, unless you're going to hire me, I'm unemployable. So if I sold the business, where would I work?
That's what I'm saying.
It's like you're unemployable. John Romano is. No one. Who's going to hire us?
Well, you don't need to work though, Jack. If you sell the business, you can go off into space if you want. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want. I mean, would you? Do you see yourself wanting to retire at some point and cash out?
Not necessarily. I just like winning the game, and I don't think about that right now.
Right.
Just having fun and trying to revolutionize things, do things radically different than everybody else has done them.
Right.
And you would think that these big beverage giants know what they're doing and have everything under control, but they don't. They're very dysfunctional and everything like that. Mm. And so we're working on changing that right now. We're putting a few $100 million into our distribution, into manufacturing.
Right.
In Phoenix, whenever you want to go, we have the fastest beverage lines in America, running 3,600 bottles a minute. It's so fast, it's like a blur.
Wow.
So we just bought a 654,000 square foot plant in Georgia where we're going to put the fastest line in the world. It's never been tested before, but it's 4,200 cans a minute.
Oh my God. What did you buy down in Florida? I know you just bought something recently. There was a big article about it. You bought a huge place.
Yeah, so we bought 60 acres, and on the front end of the 60 acres, there's going to be 3 buildings. The first 2 buildings are one's 225,000 square feet and one's 250. And the third one, we're going to connect to the second one and make a massive building. And so we'll have major plants all throughout the United States.
Wow.
Printing the cans. It's called a can decorator.
Right.
It's $60 million and $80 million to install. It's mind blowing.
Oh my God.
And then filling them all in the same plant instead of shipping them in and doing things wrong the way the rest of the beverage industry does it.
Wow.
We're super excited about that. I'm excited about aluminum because it's infinitely recyclable. You can recycle it 22 times.
Sure.
Where plastic, you have a plastic bottle, you cannot recycle it once into another bottle. You can make carpet out of it the second time around, but I'm a fisherman and there's just too much plastic in the oceans. Yeah, and just being responsible and having fun doing it.
Jack, you're an amazing story. It was, I've been lucky enough to have been friends with you over the years, and I've seen you grow, and you've seen me do my thing, and so it's nice to have a success story at the end of the rainbow. And you know what? You're fighting the good fight, and I like the fact that you still got the fire in your gut to keep going. And I'm enjoying watching your journey because it is cool to say, hey, I knew this guy when he lived in his store, and now he's fighting these major drink distributors and winning. And at the end of the day, sometimes the good guys do come out on top.
Yes, and I want to tell your listeners something really important that I've always looked up to you, your scientific knowledge, your ability to train, to do people's diets, to do people's programs, your line of supplementation, everything you do. I want you to know I look up to. I have the utmost respect for you, always have, and that's why we've always been friends for all this time.
I appreciate that.
And I appreciate our relationship. And if you ever need anything, and I mean that sincerely, just let me know. You never have to buy Bang again for the rest of your life.
I'll tell my wife that. She'll like that.
We'll send it to you free. But keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job. And I also applaud you doing what we did is you pivoted, right? You kept changing with the punches where a lot of people in this industry didn't last that long. There was no longevity. They couldn't reinvent themselves like you have done, half a dozen times. And I applaud you for that, and your listeners should really appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Jack. That means a lot to me. I appreciate that compliment, and best of luck in the future. And we'll keep in touch, obviously, and you'll give us updates on the latest products that you got coming out with. And I know our viewers love that type of stuff.
And I have one final message for you.
Yes.
God bless you and the horse you rode in on.
Thank you.
Take care,
Hi,
man.
ho, Silvers, Jack. Thank you so much. And guys, that's going to take us to the end of another episode of Live With. I'm Dave Palumbo for Jack Owoc. We'll see you next time.